My guest today is Inna Segal. Inna is a pioneer in the field of energy medicine and human consciousness, and she's the best-selling author of The Secret Language of Your Body, translated into 27 languages and with over 1 million copies sold worldwide. Her journey from illness and personal tragedy to profound self-healing has led her to spend the past 25 years helping thousands transform pain into freedom. Through her books, healing card decks, and global teachings, Inna has worked with doctors, psychologists, creatives, and trauma survivors across more than 20 countries. She's also been featured on Fox, CNN, Sunrise, Channel 10, and ABC Radio. If you want to check out any of her offerings, you can go to her website. It's innasegal.com. And you can find her on Instagram under the handle Inna Segal Author. This is such a cool episode. I hope you guys are a little open-minded. I don't know if you've ever experienced energy medicine or like worked with a medical intuitive, but perhaps Inna will open your mind to it. I have personally, and have experienced some really profound things that really resonated. So I appreciate her work, and I hope you guys enjoy. Here is Inna Segal. This episode is brought to you by Peluva. So Peluva, P-E-L-U-V-A, those are Mark Sisson's new zero-drop minimalist shoe with that distinctive five-toe design. I have been loving them. I've been a longtime fan of barefoot shoes, and I was very resistant to the little five-toe articulation personally at first, because just being real, I thought they looked really nerdy, and I was like, oh man, yeah, I love Mark so much and I get what he's doing, but I'm not wearing those nerdy shoes. And then Brad Kearns, who's also involved with that project, was like, no, Tara, you got to try them. Tara, you got to try them. Tara, just come on, try them. And I tried them, and I kid you not, I enjoy them so much that I actually like how they look now. Weirdly, I can tell. So like the purpose of that toe articulation is so that your toes can move more dynamically. So with other barefoot shoes, like I've been a long time fan of Vivos, and I'm still a big fan of Vivos, but they have just that big toe box, right? Which is awesome. So I didn't really feel like the five-toe articulation was necessary, to be honest. But as I've worn them, I have experienced how awesome that is. It was actually been quite surprising for me. And I wore them this morning. I wear them all the time, and I'm really, really enjoying that freedom of movement on my toes. So, yeah, Brad and I have been going back and forth. I'm like, dude, I actually love them. And he offered to sponsor the podcast with Peluva and also offer you guys a 15% off code, which I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I will gladly introduce my people to Peluva shoes. So you can use code Coach Tara at peluva.com, or you can just go to peluva, Peluva.com /Coach Tara, and you can get that 15% off discount. Make sure you snag some of the socks while you're there, because you're going to need the toe socks. Okay. All right, let's get into the episode. All right. So Inna, you're tuning in from Australia, right?
I am from Brisbane, Australia.
Oh, so it's nice and early in the morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And you have such a powerful message, and the power of your message really begins with the power of your own story and experience. So, can you share with everybody what brings you to what you're doing professionally now?
Absolutely. And I do think that that's probably how a lot of people would get to do healing, because I don't think it's a dream you have at 15 or something like that. You can't see yourself, and it's not something that, especially when I was younger, was really out there. And
Right.
yeah, for me it really started with pain. I think I felt like my body and I were not friends, that it was doing things, and I just couldn't understand. I couldn't grasp it or figure out, how do I work with this? Because I'm one of those people who wants to understand everything and wants to achieve. And so for me, from when I was about 9, I started getting, sorry, 10, I started getting psoriasis. And it was kind of like, oh my God, what's happening to me? And then as I got a bit older, at around 15, I started getting really bad back pain and sciatica. So it was difficult to walk, it was difficult to move. There was a lot of pain just kind of holding me back, and I felt pulling me back. And I also started getting anxiety from it. My digestive system was not working very well. And so I was really struggling. And I was asking the question that a lot of people ask, why is this happening to me? I'm so young. Why is this occurring? And when I was 18, I met at that time my partner, my first husband, and he was very, very open to alternative healing. And so he started kind of taking me to everywhere from chiropractic to kinesiology to massage therapy to rolfing to literally anything that he could think of healing. And the issue was that I had been trained, like most people, to go into these sessions with the attitude of, I know nothing about my body. I'm not connected with it. You are the expert. You know everything. I know nothing. So fix me.
Yep.
And for me, that just wasn't working in a way where it didn't hold, right? Because
Mhm.
it's you yourself who has to hold the transformation. So even if I felt better, it would last 2 days and then I would be right back, or sometimes worse than where I started. And eventually I was seeing this chiropractor 3 times a week. And on top of that, whoever else for the rest of the time. And it felt like a full-time job
Mhm.
and very expensive, which I didn't have, again, a job or money to do that. So it was really stressful, very much of a struggle. And then I felt like my turning point was this moment. I think it does happen for a lot of people when they do change and transform. Was when I went to see this chiropractor. I'd been seeing him for over a year by that stage. And again, I was crying on the phone. I was saying how much pain I was in. And he literally, I came in, he came out of his office, or I hobbled in, I should say. And he's one of those very peaceful people, very relaxed. And he looked at me and he said, your body is really stuck. And I said, that part I know. So what are you going to do today to help me? And he just was very quiet, very much thinking about his next step. And I think because he'd got to know me a little bit, he was trying to figure out what was the next step. And he did something I totally didn't expect. And he said, well, your body's stuck. There's nothing I can do about it. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, your body wants to be stuck, go home. And I think he did really go out on the limb there. But I don't think it was from a place of, trying to hurt me or anything. I really think it was from this place of going, you need to kick up the butt, really. You need to do something and you need to stop relying on everyone. And when I left, I was fuming. I was furious that he could say this to me. How dare he, and so on. But as I was driving home, and it was only a few-minute drive, in the car, I was angry, but I was focused. And I just kept hearing this thought of your body's stuck. And my thought was, well, does it have this language? Does it, and I was studying literature at the time. Like I was one of those people, and linguistics. So I was thinking, right, so it has this language and it's speaking Japanese or Chinese or something, because I don't even know the letters of the language of how I'm going to get to this. But I also felt really strongly that I was going to heal myself, because I had tried all the avenues and now somebody kind of rejected me, pushed me, and basically I was there with me. And in the past, I'd always had these thoughts where, if someone said to me, oh, you can't do something, like I want to do acting actually, or you can't, I'd go, well, I can actually, because I can write. So I can write and I can, I can do acting in my own things. So I'm not going to be stopped. And so at that time I had that thought, oh, okay, so if no one can do it, I can do it. I don't know how, but I can do it. But I'm not going to get stuck on the how. I'm just going to explore. And so when I got home, I just thought, you know what? And I know because I heard you, Tara, talk about this. I'm actually going to start with the breath. I'm going to place my hands on my back. And what occurred to me was that I just held my breath most of the time. And the only time I didn't hold my breath was when I went to acting classes, partly because we learned about it and partly because I felt so excited and happy to be there. So I would breathe properly, and all the other times I would be like, oh my God, this is painful, so I'm going to hold my breath. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually started breathing into the pain for the first time in my life. And as I was breathing into the pain, and the fear is coming up of it's going to get worse, I'm going to make it worse. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought, oh my God, I need to get my mind to be busy thinking of something, but not this. And so the only thing I could come up with at that time was to count backwards from 30. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, counting backwards from 30. And then this thought occurred, and it was a very conflicting thought, I'm going to say, mainly because I had really traumatic experiences of loss. And I just really didn't know where I was at in my belief in anything higher or divine at that particular point. And so when the thought came, I was both open and uncomfortable. And the thought was, I wonder if there is anything divine out there. And if there is, maybe it could help me. And so, again, I wasn't really expecting anything to happen, but I was hoping, I think, and wishing that
Mm-hmm.
it did exist. And I felt this warmth, like waves of warmth go through my body. And because I had my eyes closed, I could kind of sense this golden light. And I could start, I felt like there was a start of something unwinding because I was so tight, so tense. And through after that thought, another one came, and it was definitely one I'd never actually considered, never thought about it really before that. And the thought was, I wonder what my back actually looks like. I wonder if I could see into my back. And I didn't even know where it came from. And as I kind of finished that thought, it felt like there was a switch like in my brain, in my mind, and someone pressed it. And all of a sudden, my kind of attention, because I had my hands on my back already, started to go into my back. And I could actually literally see my spine, and it was inflamed, it was twisted. And my question, and I also think it was the first time in terms of my health, where I said, so why do I have this? But not from a victim perspective like I had been doing before, but from
Mm-hmm.
real curiosity. And I really want to know, I want to understand, where does this come from? And again, had no expectations at the time, but I started seeing it was like a memory tableau, but with wisdom, with kind
Mm-hmm.
of understanding. And so I could see this um, experience I had when I came to Australia. So I was born in Eastern Europe. We lived in Italy for about 9 to 10 months. And then we came to Australia. And to be honest, I wasn't prepared for the culture hit that I got in Australia, because Europe is so very different. And on top of that, I was rejected, I was teased. Whereas in Eastern Europe, in Italy, I was loved and accepted. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, that was this massive rejection. And I started to link it and go, oh my God, that's how I got my skin condition. That's how I got psoriasis. And even though it is a condition that has run in my family, I was like, well, not that it's there, but the trigger was
Mm-hmm.
actually being attacked and rejected. And then as I acknowledged it and felt through it, it was like the image changed and my inner self, my, let's call it the wisdom of my body slash soul went, okay, well, the next part that you need to understand is that when you went to high school, it was a different level of rejection that I had because my parents saw that I was, I was good at studying and I really wanted to kind of succeed. And they went, all right, we'll pay for you to go to this very kind of prestigious private school because the private school was giving out have very highly discounted places for a few people that really couldn't afford it, and especially people who were not Australian, who were from other countries. And what they didn't realize was that most of the kids who are going to this school came from families where it was literally like I visited some of their houses. They were living, to me, what looked like a palace, whereas I came from a background where we didn't have a toilet at home, we didn't have a bathroom, we didn't have a shower, we didn't have water. Everything had to be brought from the outside. And now I'm kind of entering into this universe of people who are super, super rich. And now they're angry that the school has allowed people like me to come in there and they're
Mm.
attacking. They're like, go back to where you came from. And
Wow.
now I'm experiencing rejection because now I can speak English,
Mm.
better. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm having this, oh my God, oh wow, I'm being rejected for that type of reason. And I'm walking around like again in self-protection, and so are all the other people who are being rejected. And all of us are having issues with our spine. Mine was lower back, others are having getting scoliosis, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize this.
Mm.
And but we're trying not to say anything because we're like, we've got to succeed, we've got to prove to our
Mm-hmm.
parents that you came
Mm-hmm.
here, you came to this country, we've got to do well. And and I can see how that really caused issues, and me kind of coming home and going, wow, well, my parents like are struggling financially because lower back pain is so much about that. And here I'm with these people, and it was really stressful, confusing for me at that time. And and on top of it, I was suppressing everything that I wanted to do because that really wasn't encouraged in that particular school. It was much more about, well, how are you going to be a lawyer, how are you going to be a doctor, not how
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be some creative. That was just like, you're going to waste your life. So it was really interesting to get all of those insights from my body.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually had, again, I acknowledge I cried through some of this. And I started to get these images also of my grandparents, which was this, ancestral type of trauma that was that my inner being was showing me. So now it wasn't a memory anymore. It was more of my inner being going, well, on top of this, you are carrying the trauma of your grandparents who went through. My grandmother was part of a family of 8. And during the war, she was literally shot. I mean, her mother was shot to save my grandmother's life. And
Mm-hmm.
she survived for 4 years on her own. And
Oh, wow.
she was shot at so many times, and all her brothers and sisters were killed,
Oh, my
and her
goodness.
mother. And my grandmother was 13 at the time. So,
Mm.
it was extremely traumatic. And then she
Mm-hmm.
didn't really talk about it except to my grandfather for 50 years. And
Wow.
her and I had this massive trauma. I got pregnant when I was 19, and I went full term and then lost the child. And
Mm.
this loss just, intertwined with my grandmother's. And, and I was like, oh my God, wow, there's so much to deal with here. There was a lot to do with my digestive system and why I was having difficulty eating or digesting food or processing food. So I knew this one was going to take quite a while to really
Mm-hmm.
process because it had only happened not that long ago for me. And so, I just kept kind of acknowledging and doing my best with my awareness. I also realized that I was one of those sponges that I would go outside. If somebody was sick, I'd want to help and pull that sickness into my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened a lot because somebody would go, I have knee pain. I talk to them, and the next day I would have knee pain, but they would feel better. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had all these, I had so much insight in this experience of kind of like opening myself up to what's going on in my body through this intense pain. And the following day, I fell asleep. I was absolutely exhausted after all of these insights. This went on for hours. And I could still feel the unwinding in my sleep. And I was like, oh my God, my body is doing something. I've never felt it like this before. And so when I woke up the next day, I had, I would say 70% of the actual pain was gone. I still felt the tension. I still felt some pain and some twistedness, but I knew something was shifting. And I also didn't want the skepticism in my mind, because I am a skeptic in that sense, to take over. So I made this decision and commitment to keep going until my back and psoriasis and anxiety and digestive system started to at least improve. I didn't, my hope wasn't to get rid of it. I was like, just improve it. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
not be in pain all the time. And it took about 3 weeks, and I had no more back pain, and I really never had it since. And the
Wow.
psoriasis, which was all over my elbows, my knees, again, just disappeared. My anxiety went right down.
Wow.
Digestive system took way, way longer to work on, and I'm still, I'm very
Mhm.
conscious of what I eat and what I put into my mouth in terms of food, but it was like, okay, wow, this is amazing. And then I had this discovery that I could tune in and see into other people. Like that there was this opening that occurred, and I went, okay, well, I want to do acting and I wanted to write movies and TV shows. And this is, I need to rethink this. I need to see, where this goes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so it really went because since then you've been doing a lot with this. And your book is called The Secret Language of the Body. Is that what one?
Yeah, the secret
Yeah.
language of your body. Yeah.
Secret language what? Of your body.
Of your body. Yeah.
Yes, of your body. Okay, so I love this, and I've definitely, I'm not a medical intuitive, if you will. I don't see into other people's physiologies like that. But I definitely, being in my line of work, see lots of correlations with similar traumatic experiences. It's like, oh, endometriosis or like some sort of reproductive type thing. I see a lot of sexual trauma go hand in hand with that. I see a lot of that anger with like liver or low back pain. And, Chinese medicine has been onto this for a while, but I love that you found the ability to understand these things by going inside yourself, connecting with breath, opening up to the possibility that to be a little weird, right? Like that's, I think, a barrier for a lot of us in terms of
Mm.
understanding our spiritual gifts is it's weird. So we're just closed off to it. And through desperation, I guess, maybe you got to the point where you're like, okay, I'll open up to it. And I believe also you said in another interview, I think I heard you say that you were having like some out of body type experiences because the pain was so excruciating,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
find often correlates with being able to tap into the other side a little easier, if other side, if you will. I've definitely seen a strong correlation with that because what you're describing to me sounds like a ayahuasca experience or a holotropic breath work type experience or something that people often need psychedelics or something like that to access. But I think that possibly pain, also that little bit of like separation from the body, possibly like pulled you into some of those psychic realms, if you will, whatever words we need to put into it. So tell us more about where it went from here. So you started being able to like see into other people's bodies and more into your own and started to learn patterns, or like tell us more what happened from there.
Yeah. Well, I think for me it was more I really wanted to help my family, So to me it
Mhm.
was like, how do I, in particular, my grandparents, because my grandfather was really struggling with really bad headaches at the time, and and I had this strong connection with them, so I just wanted to help, but I also have this very skeptical, almost scientific type mind where
Mhm.
I would go, okay, so I remember saying to my partner at the time, I need to connect to people I don't know, starting with friends, because obviously I am not gonna just go out there and go, I'm gonna do all this when I don't know to what degree this capacity is actually open or even, or
Mhm.
even works.
Mhm.
And I remember well, I to just go back, I had the way I actually found out, because I didn't know. It's not like you're told that you can do this. It
Right.
was it started with the fact that at that time my partner had a friend over, and she was actually a great writer and a naturopath. So that's what she was studying at the time. And her and I were at the at my computer, and I was saying to her, well, can you just read over my writing? Because I was actually going to kind of university. Well, I was going to university at the time. I was writing, whatever essays or whatever I needed to do for that. And because she was saying how great she was at writing, I said, well, just can you give me insight? Can you look over it before I hand it in? And so her and I were just chatting at my laptop. And then at one point, I'm reading something, and then I just look over at her, and I literally see this cartoon looking liver above her head.
Wow.
And I'm opening and closing my eyes, and she's going, do you have something in your eye? And
Wow.
I said to her, well, I don't, but can I tell you something so weird and strange? Because I've never actually had this experience prior, really.
Mm.
And she said, yeah, yeah, sure. And I knew she was open-minded from naturopathy
Mhm.
and everything she was doing. And so I said to her, it's going to sound really weird, but do you have liver problems? And she said, yeah, I'm like, she didn't expect that. She said, yeah, I've had them my whole life. How do you know? I didn't even know how to answer it. How do I know? But all I knew was that the image changed. And
Wow.
I actually saw her grandfather. And I also knew, like, like in the image, I could tell that he had been through the war, and he actually had been in a concentration camp. And I said to
Mm.
her, well, has he been in a concentration camp? And she said, yes. And I said, did he have the same issues as you have? And she said, yeah, he did. And then I
Mm.
said to her, do you get nightmares? Because I am getting that. You do? And she said, yeah, a lot. And I said to her, I remember thinking, oh my God, I wish I paid attention in science class, because I thought, I'm going to do acting and writing. Why do I need science?
Right.
Seriously. And so I thought, this could be so wrong, because I know nothing about the body, especially at that time.
Mm.
And I said to her, do you have no, I feel like your condition comes from your DNA. I feel like there's something going on with your DNA, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I know nothing about this. This is so uncomfortable. And
Mm.
it was really interesting because 2 years later, she had this test done, and that's exactly what she got in terms of results. But I also then started saying things to her that were related to her family, but were very kind of hidden, and things that she actually didn't know about. And she said to
Mm.
me, I don't know this stuff. I'm going to call my mum. And so she calls her mum, and I was 21 at the time, she was 25. And she said to me, she's like, after she spoke to her mum, oh my God, I've just learned more about my family in the last, hour between talking to me and her mum than I've known in my last 25 years. And we both kind of sat there staring at each other, and I'm going, um, this is really weird. I've never done this before. I don't know how to, like, where to
Mm.
put it,
Mhm.
essentially. And yeah, and she was a bit like, yeah, I know. And the next thing that actually happened around this days, I think, was my mum called me, and she goes, because I shared with her, and she goes, okay, well, now I think you can do some healing on your dad because he hurt his knee really badly at work and he needs to go to work. Or he's struggling at work. I can't remember which one it was. But I said to her, and you want me to do what? And she said, well, you did healing on yourself. Look at where you are. Because she had been with
Mm.
me when, I couldn't cross the road, or I was,
Right.
she had to drag me, and she had been very stressed about my health and my situation. And so she's like, well, do it on your dad. And I was like, I don't even know what you're asking me for. I don't know what you want me to do. And she was like, well, whatever you did for yourself, do it. And I was like, fine. I can only say to you that I can concentrate on his knee, and I'm not promising anything else. And so I'm concentrating and focusing, and I keep seeing these boats, boat, boat, boat. And I call my mom back, and I said, well, I'm seeing boats. So either I'm crazy or he was on a boat and when this happened. And I just want to know if he was at work or on a boat. And she's like, no, he hasn't been on a boat. He was at work. So I went, okay, fine. And clearly she called him to ask him, or she spoke to him. And a few minutes later, I get a phone call from my dad, and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know if mom told you, but I have this new ability. And he was like, I'm really happy for you. But I said to him, I just need to know about this boat thing. And he said, well, yeah, I was on a boat, but I don't want you, I don't need you telling your mom this stuff. And I said to him, really? So you're on a boat, and you were, essentially lied. And he was
Yeah.
like, she doesn't need to know everything. And this new ability that you have, I think you should just keep it to yourself,
Oh,
and your
wow.
other people, but don't, he's like, don't do it with me.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, so in my mind, I started going, look, there's no way I could know that. There's no way I could know
Right.
about this friend. There's no way I could know about this. This
Right.
is like, I don't know this stuff. And then I think the next person, or somewhere around there, was another lady that was really close friends with my then husband. And I, I was tuning into her, and I was like, I think you have problems with your feet. Like, I'm really seeing that. And I remember also thinking, okay, well, again, 100% didn't know that. It's not like you just go, hey, you have this. And she was like, yeah, I've suffered with feet issues for years and years. And and so I was like, okay, well, there is something to this, because now, I'm really getting things that I just don't know. And the way I'm going to, work with this is I am going to see if there's courses available that I can do to learn more. And being, a writer, I was like, well, this kind of gives me something to think about. And I thought, well, how about, and I was speaking to my, husband at the time, I said to him, what if we start interviewing these people who have these abilities or who have written books about understanding the body? Because he was really, really into that at the time. And I said to him, well, you can tell me who they are. And then, you know, we can interview them. I mean, like, we can contact them, we can interview them and potentially learn from them and, ask the questions that you can't, that are not in the books.
Mhm.
And if they're coming to Australia, go to their events.
Mhm.
And that's what happens. I did that for about 5 years. And I was like, wow, this is so interesting because I would have, kind of like you're doing, I would get to know them. A lot of them were coming to Australia, and so we would actually interview them, find out and interview them around that time and go, okay, I'm seeing, I think my biggest issue, Tara, to be honest, was that what I was seeing and what some of them were saying was not the same thing. So
Mm.
they would say certain things like, oh, you should do this. And they would have somebody, let's say, on stage and they were doing it. And I would be watching and going,
Mm.
that's not a good thing to do for this particular person. I think you need
Mm.
to be more gentle, or you need to, go into this direction. And that was really frustrating. This was very conflictual because I was this person where, I've worked really hard to get into university, and, I was kind of very proud of, how intellectual I was in a way. And, literature, I mean, like,
Mhm.
when you study literature, you're like, oh, most people can't read these types of things or learn
Yes.
or,
Mhm.
dissect all this.
Mhm.
And here I am, and I don't know how it is in the US, but in Australia, you have to get like top, like, pretty much A pluses or, A's to A plus to get into that type of a course. Like, you
Mm.
don't just get in.
Mm.
You have to be very,
Mhm.
very kind of, there's that intellectual kind of superiority almost. And
Right.
so I was like, well, you know, I don't know how to dissect this because, and how to work with this, because who do I trust, me? And I'm so young, and I'm, or this 6-year-old person on the
Right.
stage, or, who has thousands of people and sold millions of books. And here
Mhm.
I am going, oh my God. And then I'm interviewing someone else and they're saying the opposite. And oh my God, that was years of kind of a
Mm.
struggle in my mind, and making a decision. Well, why do I have this ability? Because I would never ever personally gone into this kind of industry. I never thought about it. It was not on my
Right.
radar. Had I not had the this ability, and I went, "Ooh, okay, so it's there for a reason. I need to use it." And eventually, I had to kind of go, "All right, I'm going to take this part, that I'm learning, and how do I work with each person to really, really understand?" And so this was a very intensive journey for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that journey of self-trust also that I think so many of us can relate to, especially when endeavoring in a new like profession. It was interesting for you because it's just like this is just happening, but this person is so seasoned and experienced. Like, do I abandon myself and just assume that I'm wrong and they're right, or do I trust myself? And that's a crazy journey, especially when you're young too, right? So,
Well, to a point where when I started doing healing sessions on people, like, so for a year, I was just kind of exploring and doing courses and whatever. And then I thought, okay, I'm just going to start and see what, goes on little by little. And the people would come to the door and they'd go, hi, I'm here for your mom.
oh my gosh.
I can't tell you how many times people said that
Oh
to
my
me. Psychologists like
God.
my mom and me. And they would, yeah. And, at times, I mean, I would have, oh my God, I would have medical professionals, so many of them coming, and it would be, can't tell you how many psychologists, I saw, how many nurses. I was like, if I could, if I could put in, into categories who was coming to see me, especially as I started in my 20s, it was like nurses,
Mm,
teachers, psychologists,
mm,
um, countless psychologists. They were my best clients, and
mm,
nurses.
mm,
And I was like, oh my God. And sometimes doctors, I'm not going to say it was often, but definitely had,
mm,
doctors coming in, and I was like, oh my God, I am, 23, 24, and thinking, I know nothing compared to your years of study. And why are you coming to me? Like, what can I offer you, type of thing. I mean, I didn't say it out aloud, but
mm,
I was like, this is pressure, this is stress, and I think when I was maybe, I can't remember, maybe 25, 26, 26 maybe, I actually ended up working for several, for quite a while, I'm going to say, at this doctor's office, where he was very much open to alternatives, and we worked side by side. He had
mm.
his room, I was next door. He would send me so many patients, and it was pretty surreal, in a sense, where I was like, oh my God, I have this person who was very respected and known, kind of, in both medical and alternative health community. So he learned a lot about alternative health, and he's sending me his clients, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was amazing.
That's so cool. I think that before we have experience with these type of things, we all think it's weird, right? Like it's like, oh, it's like cuckoo bananas, blah 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 blah. And my kids, I have four teenagers right now. Okay, so they're very like, how do I say? Oh, like mom and her woo woo stuff, or that they're just very resistant to anything in the realm of like spirituality for the most part. The older ones are like slightly more open to it, but a 13-year-old in seventh grade that's trying to be cool doesn't really want to hear about
Yeah.
the psychic downloads that some guy that you met recently had about your past lives. It's like, cool,
Yeah.
don't be weird, mom. Don't be weird. Conform and fit in at all costs. But I always tell them, I'm like, well, in my experience, you just know pretty quickly if somebody has that gift or not. I've met with a medical intuitive once. She just straight to it. She's just like, they're working on your right hip. I'm like, okay, yeah. And just several other things that were even in my soul, like, emotional things I was dealing with, like acutely, just straight to the point addressing them. And so it's I'm so grateful that you were able to get past your skeptic mind, and do I dare even say grateful that you went through all that pain so that it could open up that gift in you, and especially maybe your private school torturous experience that also led you to valuing being this like academic, which then also got you to write books and be a little more progressive in business perhaps, and be able to get on podcasts and get the word out there. And it's cool how it all came together. Definitely not what you were expecting, but very cool. What would you say for people who might be interested in your book? And you have a lot of resources on your website also. Um, what would you have them start with, actually, if they're kind of curious about this and want to learn more? Would that be the book?
Yeah, I would really get people to explore the secret language of your body. And you do have to say your body, because there's another book with the same, almost identical
Okay.
name that's actually come out very recently. And
Great.
just go with what works.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's a great kind of starting point in terms of starting to ask questions, and the book has several different sections, and it starts with, and I think this is the section everybody skips, where I describe why we do the processes that we do. And I think the biggest difference actually between my book and any other book that's like this, and obviously I've been compared a lot to Caroline Myss and to Louise Hay and stuff like that. And I think the biggest difference is that I actually really give you processes that embody all of you, so from the breathing to the touch to movement at times to pressure points to visualization to letting go and releasing statements to kind of, well, anything that we've got that we can work with, essentially, to going inside and asking good questions, to exploring your life story and all of these types of things. And what I really want people to do is to start by actually taking a moment to read and understand how to do the processes properly,
Mm,
because there are, I thought about people and I thought, well, everyone's so different, right? Some of us are more auditory, some of us are more visual. Like I'm a
mm,
very visual person,
me
but I
too.
didn't actually know that until I had my healing experience. I had
Mm,
no idea that,
mm,
that messages and insights come to me visually so much. But some people are very auditory, some people are very kinesthetic.
mhm,
Some people have more of this knowingness that comes to them, and some people need to move. And so I wanted to bring as much of all of these aspects into the processes, but make them very simple, because,
mhm,
I kind of thought, well, they need to be simple. A child needs to be able to do this. And,
mm,
but deep enough, like deep enough for people to start to get an understanding of what their body's really saying. And so, the first section is kind of going, this is what they are. This is how you actually start to tune into yourself. Because I don't want you just constantly opening the book, where it tells you all the symptoms that cause a particular part of the body to break down, before you take a moment to self connect and go,
right,
but how does this relate to me?
right.
Because the symptoms are still quite generalized in a sense, but I want people to be specific to themselves.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
also want them to start to recognize that, and I've been saying this in different podcasts because I think most people have never thought about this.
right.
And what I want them to realize is that the anger, let's say anger or fear, let's talk about fear because fear is a huge one. The fear that you feel that makes your throat feel like it's going to tense up, and you're having difficulty to swallow, and the fear in your stomach and the fear in your heart is not the same. It's actually
Right.
not the same fear. It doesn't have the same storyline.
Mm,
And every emotion has some kind of storyline if there is charge. If you're feeling it and you're like, I don't like it, I don't want it, it's uncomfortable for me, it has a storyline. And the storyline around your throat is very different to the storyline around your heart. So the throat is an area, obviously, of communication and our voice. And it's like, this is my essence, that I can have a voice, that I
mhm,
can speak, that I can be heard. And
mhm,
so when you have fear around here, it's because you've been shut down and you haven't
mhm,
been able to express yourself in the way that is healthy for you. And so
mhm,
what people start to do is they become angry, or fearful. So they start expressing through anger, which then makes people go, well, I don't want you to be angry with me. That's not nice. And they kind of slap that other person with attacking them back. And then they go, oh my God, like, why I'm saying my truth? Why are you hurting me? And so
mhm,
then they kind of go, hey, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to shut down. And the fear is, what if they judge me? What if they attack me? What if I say something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we come to the heart, that's intimacy, right? So when we are rejected, betrayed, hurt, by somebody we really love and care about, then the heart starts going, and we can see how many heart problems people have. It starts going, oh my God, you've hurt me. Now I'm really afraid of opening my heart, and because I might get hurt again. And so here the fear is, what if I'm so hurt I can't rebuild myself?
Mm-hmm.
What if, I, like I felt hurt. I don't want to have those feelings again. So we have fear, around intimacy, but then we also have fear around a purpose, because we go, well, what if I'm rejected like I was at school? Maybe I should hide, or maybe somebody said this to me, my parents or school teachers, or later on my boss, or somebody said something that made us feel like, oh my God, I can't. And we took it not as, okay, well, that's your perspective, very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. We
Mm-hmm.
took it as, well, I can't do it anymore because they told me that I can't. And so now I'm shut down. And then in the stomach, the fear is much more about moving forward and taking action and going, well, you know, what if they attack me? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? Um what if I do something wrong and they humiliate me? Because actually the timeline around the stomach in particular is connected to our teenage years, and like so much stuff between the age of 14 and 21 happened to us in a 7-year time period. And I kind of connect parts of the body to time periods, and when is it likely that things started to break down in your body, or you start holding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people will, our self-image is created often, in a solar plexus chakra during that time period. And so
Mm-hmm.
when people were mean to us, put us down, didn't believe us, didn't give us the opportunity that we were looking for, again we start going, well, I'm small, I'm going to play small. Or, and so the fear here is, I'm not good enough. I mean, how many times have I heard this? I'm sure you have.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest beliefs that people have. I'm not good
Mm-hmm.
enough. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm never good enough. No matter what I do, it's not enough. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually say to people, well, this is not personal, to be honest. Like, show me how many people don't have this on
Yeah.
some level, in some way, going on
Mm-hmm.
in this part of your body. And so, when people realize this, they can start to become specific. And
Mm-hmm.
if people want to heal faster, and I think all of us do, without skipping steps, so it's like slow but fast,
Yeah.
in a sense where you don't want to put a band-aid on and skip steps, to don't just have to go back and constantly
Mm-hmm.
going back to the same old.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't want to go back, which is faster, it means you need to be specific. You need to actually recognize exactly what this storyline is about. And you can't do that unless you connect to yourself and you start to befriend your body, essentially, create a relationship with it. And I say body soul, in a sense, we start with that because it's not necessarily your body that's giving you the messages that are to do with your storyline or your emotions. That's more of a soul exploration experience. And so as you but you need to connect to the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to breathe with the body, because how are you going to get messages without breathing? Because you're going to be stuck in your mind. So to get into the body, you're going to breathe.
Yeah.
You don't have to force the breath, but you need to allow.
Yeah.
And then you need to, essentially sensitize and awaken the body. And you do that through movement. So
Nice.
kind of, you know, it, I actually, when I'm teaching people, and this is a little strange for people when they start doing work with me, I get people to stand in processes as opposed to sit or lie.
Mm,
And there's several reasons for it. I mean, there are certain processes where people can sit or lie, but
mhm,
mostly we start with standing. And this, one of the reasons is that when you're lying down, your actually your body starts to prepare for sleep.
mm,
And because I understand subtle bodies, we have this body called the astral body. And the astral body holds all your desires, all your emotions, and your consciousness. And so when you go to sleep, the reason you become in deep sleep unconscious is because the astral body is actually going into the spiritual world for recovery. It's home and it's
mm,
connected to the soul.
mm,
Whereas the physical body, and also what we call our etheric, which is the body of vitality and chi and energy, stays inside the physical body
mm,
and is recovering on that physical level that we need in terms of energy. And so you have the soul and the astral going into the spiritual world, and also your I. So your sense of self, which is also a kind of energy body, is going into the spiritual world. And and so you don't have that when you're in deep sleep. And a lot of people can feel, at times when the astral body comes back and you wake up and it's like there's a bit of a jolt. You wake up and you're like, I'm back here in my body, which is the astral coming back. And now you're conscious. So
mhm,
now your consciousness is back, and your also sense of self starts to come back. And so I want people to have a very conscious sense of self and access to their emotions fully when they're
mhm,
doing this deeper work. Because again, I heard you say, I want, in one podcast, so, well, I want to make this, why do we need to have extra suffering if, why do we need to prolong it? I
mhm,
think you can learn from it, but you don't need prolonged suffering because
mhm,
that actually weakens you a lot. And
mhm,
so, by standing, what I do is I get people to really focus on what does it mean to connect to my sense of self. And
mhm,
this is what it feels like. This is what it's about. And then we actually create this separation of, now I'm going to enter into this space, into this circle where I'm going to connect to myself, and I can express whatever, I can lose it in whatever way that I need to. I can cry, I can, move, I can do whatever I need to do.
mhm,
But when I step out, I'm going to come back to my healthier self, but now reintegrated with everything, all the wisdom and transformation that happen inside this circle. And I also get people to really ground it and bring it into their nervous system so that it starts to become a new aspect of you, a new part of you. And when you stand, you're not scrunching. So, like if I'm sitting, there's parts of me that I'm scrunching up and I'm moving around. And
right.
so I am not fully, like, how can I be fully embodied, right? I cannot
Mm,
when I'm sitting. So
mm,
there's still parts of me that are, and again, because I can see these bodies, I'm like, oh, it's going here from a person. They're not fully present because, like if I often say, and again, this is only for people who can obviously stand and move, that the others will sit or whatever,
mhm,
and I will say, even if you could do it a little bit, even if a little bit, and and during the process, I'm like, okay, well, maybe we can move, or we can take steps forward, or we can connect to our bodies in different ways that we can't when we're just sitting or lying. And it kind of reminds me of this story where I had this lady and she could hardly walk. So
mm,
she actually came to my course. It was a live one at the time, and it was upstairs. And she was like, "Oh my God, I've got chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and a million other issues with it." She
mhm,
was struggling with, and I cannot walk. And I said, and she said by the time she got in, it was like, a 1 minute kind of walk up the stairs. She was sweating and she was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And so during the process, like when I was teaching, I said, all right, well, we're actually going to work on our ancestry, and we're going to work on on a mother line, on a feminine line, but with the mother, on whatever you've picked up from her. And I said to this lady, she's like, to get here, to get into this room was already so painful. You're asking me to walk around the room and do this process. And I was like, yeah, just try. Just like, even if it's a few steps, just do whatever you can do. And so, she gets up, and we're in that particular process, you need to, like, we're literally going through trimesters. Like, you've got to step, otherwise you're too stuck in your mind if you're sitting down. And so she's stepping, and at one point, all her pain that she had, especially in her legs and in her knees, just lets go, because she's having this massive realization about what she's picked up from her mother. And she's like, oh my God, I can walk. I can walk around the room. I just can't believe it. And, she comes back the next day without her cane, without anything. She's like, I can walk.
Wow.
And then she said, and you're not going to believe this, Inna, but it's like I've got 5 centimeters of my height back, because
I
her
bet.
leg was bowed,
Mm,
and now it's
mm,
not. And so we're seeing,
mm-hmm,
as we're using all of ourselves, like, we're seeing results, which, in some ways you're always looking for that, because you're like, does this work?
mm-hmm,
That are really profound, because everything is involved
mm-hmm,
inside of yourself. And I always say it's like there's the thinking part, and lots of people in the healing industry will say, well, the thinking is the key, and there's some truth to it. There is, you need to think, right? You need to
mm-hmm,
direct it,
mm-hmm.
but it's not the full key,
Right.
because you've got to feel, and then you've got to act. Like, you've
Yeah.
got to move, and
Yes.
you've got to then put it into your life as
Right.
a lifestyle. Like, it's got
Yeah.
to become part of your life. And this lady, she was in her, mid 60s, I think, at the time when she came, and or early 60s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was literally told by the medical professional, and she was a kinesiologist at the time and
Mm,
had 25 years of experience, and just couldn't move all this pain and all these issues and thyroid issues that she had. And oh
mm-hmm.
my God. um and she said her doctors at the time, in hernia, like, I honestly, like, there was so much.
Yeah.
And her doctor said, look, honestly, where you're at in your health, you don't have long. And I hate that
Wow.
doctors say this, because I
Right.
just, again, that kind of feeds that part of us that,
Right.
could give up when
Mm-hmm.
you don't, where there's so many options not to.
Mm-hmm.
And she just really got it into her head, because I kept saying, like, it has to be a practice, it
Mm-hmm.
has to be a practice. It's not just a one-off
Right.
experience and here's miracles and you don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
live your life? How do you bring it
Mm-hmm.
into your life? And she really started to practice and bring it into her life. And it was like the amount of diseases and issues she had. Oh my God. She turned things around that the medical profession was like, well, that's not even possible. Like, don't even try, because that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me so many kind of feedback and testimonials where it was like, wow, this is what
Mm-hmm.
a human being can do. And even, at an age, where people are like, well, and like, it's, I can't do this healing, I'll just go medical route. And she did. And the medical route just, like, wasn't working for her. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, if you can really awaken and connect to your body at
Mm-hmm.
any point it can help you and it can, heal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, not only are you living proof of that yourself, but now
Mm.
I can't even imagine how many times you've seen that happen. And I'm grateful that you are willing to put yourself out there like this, get on podcasts, like writing books, doing courses and master classes. A lot of work,
Yeah.
but and also takes some fearlessness also because it's in a realm where a lot of us are open to, but not everyone is open to. So you also have to get past all that kind of stuff. So thank you for doing that. And I just want to highlight everybody to the fact that, like, on your website, you have like free master classes and courses, and you have a podcast. And I think I saw somewhere, don't you have like tarot card decks or something
Yeah, yeah.
also? Yeah.
I've got a lot of decks, and again, they're on different topics from
Cool.
ancestry that's just come out to actually working on your heart. Because I realized
Nice.
how many people have had hurt or heartbreak
Everyone.
to right to your own healing journey and healing and actually
Hmm.
discovering to spirituality and understanding more of your, where you're at
Hmm.
in that realm, to color healing, to soul kind of
Yeah.
exploration, emotional work. So yeah, a lot working on
Yeah.
a child one for next year. So
Cool. Well, you've been busy, girl. You've been busy, girl.
busy.
It's really cool. So, you can go to her website, guys. It's Inna. Inna is Inna Segal. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Segal.com. So, and then also on Instagram, it's just your first and last name, right?
yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's like Inna Segal author.
Author.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
So you guys can find her on Instagram also. And thank you so much. So cool your journey and what you're doing now. So I appreciate you coming and sharing it with all of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope it's been helpful to you in your journey. If you think that it might be helpful to someone you know, please share it with them. Please share on social media. It really helps me grow the show and reach more people with these amazing messages. And if you could be so kind as to rate the show and possibly even leave me a review, that really helps. So much thanks in advance if you do that. And yeah, please subscribe if you want to hear more of this type of content. I have lots of amazing expert guests on the way. All right. Thank you.